What if I told you that the most powerful person in any room is often the one everyone overlooks? We live in a world that teaches us to worship at the altar of wealth and status, to believe that billionaires have it all figured out. But what if their greatest secrets aren't hidden in Swiss bank accounts or boardrooms, but in the quiet, forgotten corners of their own homes? This isn't just another rags to riches tale. This is a true story that flips the entire script on power and vulnerability. It's about a billionaire who built an empire to escape his pain, and the domestic worker who saw through it all with a single glance through a keyhole. The most shocking part: what she discovered wasn't scandalous or illegal. It was something far more dangerous to the rich and powerful. Simple human truth. We promise you a reward that has nothing to do with money. The reward is a new way of seeing the invisible people in your own life: the cleaners, the drivers, the caretakers, an understanding that they often hold the keys to truths that can transform everything. Get ready for an emotional journey, where loyalty proves more valuable than any stock portfolio, and where a woman earning minimum wage becomes the moral compass for $1 billion empire. Now, let me tell you about Alina though. If you passed her on the street, you'd probably look right through her. She was one of those domestic workers who move through mansions like ghosts, polishing silver that costs more than her yearly salary. For 15 years, she'd served the Harrington family, learning to read the silence between their shouted arguments. This wasn't just a job. It was a masterclass in human drama played out in marble hallways, do you see? Alina understood something most people don't. The rich, they build these fancy cages around themselves and call them homes. They've got everything money can buy, but they're starving for the one thing they can't purchase: genuine connection. She'd watch Mr. Harrington pace his study at 3 a.m., a man worth billions who couldn't buy a good night's sleep. Now that's a real-life paradox that'll make you think twice about chasing wealth. Here's where it gets interesting. My friend Alina had this peculiar habit. She'd notice everything, not in a nosy way, but in that quiet, observant manner that immigrant stories are made of. She knew which daughter was failing math by the tear-stained textbooks, which son was in trouble by the way he avoided his father's eyes. She was collecting puzzle pieces without even knowing she was playing a game. But let me ask you something. When's the last time you truly observed the people around you? I'm not talking about glancing at your phone while your spouse talks. I mean really seeing them. Try this tomorrow. Put your devices away for 1 hour and just watch. Just listen. You'll be amazed at the life lessons hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who's actually paying attention, of course. Elena's sharp eyes were about to get her into the kind of trouble that changes her life forever. There was one room in that 52-room mansion that was always locked, Mr. Harrington's private study. The staff called it the Vault, and rumors swirled about what secrets it held. But Elena, she never gave it much thought, until that rainy Tuesday when she noticed something peculiar about the lock. That Tuesday started like any other, but fate has a funny way of hiding life-changing moments in ordinary hours. Elena was dusting the hallway outside the study when she noticed the lock was slightly misaligned, like someone had left in a hurry. Now, most folks would have minded their own business, but something, call it intuition or plain curiosity, made her peer through the keyhole. And what she saw, well, it wasn't gold or secret documents that made her heart stop. The room was nothing like she'd imagined. No expensive art, no lavish furniture, just walls covered in childish drawings. The kind kids make in kindergarten. There were crayon sketches of stick figures holding hands, lopsided houses with smoking chimneys, and in the center of it all, a man sitting at a small desk, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Mr. Harrington, the titan of industry, was crying over a child's drawing. Here's the thing about secrets. They're rarely what you expect. We imagine Swiss bank accounts and hidden affairs, but the most powerful secrets are often the simple, human ones. Elena was witnessing a man mourning the family he'd lost while building his empire, a father who'd chosen boardrooms over bedtime stories. This emotional story was unfolding in real time, and she was the accidental audience. Now, this is where most people would have done one of two things. Either walked away pretending they saw nothing, or used the information for personal gain. But Elena, she did something extraordinary. She quietly fixed the misaligned lock and went back to her work, carrying the weight of what she'd seen. She understood that some truths are like delicate china. They break easily in rough hands. The real question is, what would you have done in her position? It's easy to judge from the outside, but when you're holding someone's vulnerability in your hands, that's when your character gets tested. Elena's choice to protect rather than expose was about to set in motion a chain of events that would test everything she believed about loyalty, power, and the strange dance between the working class and the wealthy they serve. For 3 long days, Elena carried Mr. Harrington's secret like a precious, fragile weight in her chest. Every time she passed the study, her eyes would unconsciously drift to that keyhole, remembering the broken man she'd witnessed within. She'd catch glimpses of him during business calls in the garden. That same man now barking commands with icy precision, and feel a strange pang of what? Pity. No, it was more like recognition. Here was another human being, just like her, wearing a mask to get through the day. Now you might be wondering why she didn't just quit or confront him. But that's the thing about real life. It's never that simple. Elena had her own family back in Guatemala, depending on her remittances, her son's university tuition, her mother's medical bills. All of it hung in the delicate balance of this job. Sometimes, the most courageous act isn't making a scene. It's knowing when to stay silent. That's a life lesson you won't find in most self-help books. What's fascinating is how this secret began changing Elena's perspective. She started noticing other things. The way Mr. Harrington's eyes would linger on family photos when he thought no one was looking. How he'd sometimes call his assistant by his son's name. The billionaire wasn't just a rich man. He was a collection of broken pieces held together by money and pride. This human drama was becoming a masterclass in empathy. Here's something practical you can try. Next time you're frustrated with someone in power, your boss, a politician, anyone, try looking for their keyhole moment. Not to exploit it, but to understand what human struggles they might be hiding beneath their authority. You'll find that this simple shift in perspective can transform your relationships and reduce your stress levels almost immediately. Of course, Elena's silent vigil couldn't last forever. The universe has a way of forcing secrets into the light, and hers was about to be tested in the most unexpected way. A new security director was joining the household. A man with a reputation for digging up dirt and cleaning house, and his first order of business was reviewing all staff access to private areas. Elena's 15 years of impeccable service were about to mean nothing. The new security director A man named Mr. Croft, who smelled of cheap cologne and authority, gathered the staff like a general addressing his troops. He announced new protocols, background checks, and most alarmingly, random bag searches. Elena felt her stomach tighten. It wasn't that she had anything to hide, but the thought of this man digging through her personal items felt like a violation of the quiet trust she'd built over 15 years. The mansion was becoming less like a home and more like a fortress. Here's where Elena's immigrant stories of resilience kicked in. She'd survived civil unrest, border crossings, and starting over in a new country, one overzealous security guard wasn't about to break her. She developed a simple system. She'd keep her head down, do her work impeccably, and maintain the gentle dignity that had always been her armor. Sometimes, the most powerful resistance is quiet consistency in the face of unnecessary pressure. But then came the incident that changed everything. Mr. Croft, in his zeal to prove his worth, accused Elena of stealing a silver picture frame from the study. The truth was, she'd taken it to polish it properly, something she'd done monthly for a decade. But in that moment, standing accused in front of her colleagues, Elena faced a choice. She could reveal what she knew about the study's true contents to defend herself, or she could take the humiliation. What would you have done? When your integrity is questioned unfairly, the temptation to fight back with every weapon available is overwhelming. But Elena remembered the weeping man surrounded by children's drawings. She bit her tongue, accepted the written warning, and returned to the polished frame without a word of explanation. Some battles aren't worth winning if they destroy someone else in the process. This emotional story took an unexpected turn the next morning. Mr. Harrington, who'd apparently reviewed the security report, personally sought Elena out in the kitchen. He didn't apologize. Men like him rarely do, but he placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture he'd never made in 15 years. "The frame looks brighter," was all he said, but his eyes held a different message entirely. He knew she could have exposed him, and he knew she hadn't. That silent understanding between them created a new, unspoken alliance. But outside forces were gathering that would test this fragile trust beyond its limits. Mr. Harrington's business partners were circling, sensing weakness after a bad quarter, and they'd hired private investigators to dig up any dirt they could find. The billionaire's corporate enemies were about to become Elena's problem too. The corporeal shark smelled blood in the water, my friend. When a billionaire shows even a hint of vulnerability, the creditors come circling. These weren't just business rivals, they were vultures in Armani suits, armed with private investigators and subpoenas. They'd somehow gotten wind that Mr. Harrington had been emotionally compromised, and they were determined to find his weak spot. Little did they know they were hunting for a ghost, a secret protected by a woman they wouldn't even notice. One afternoon, a slick investigator cornered Elena in the pantry. "We know he's hiding something," the man said, his voice dripping with full sympathy. "Help us, and there's $5,000 in it for you. That's more than you make in 2 months, isn't it?" He dangled the cash like bait, assuming every working-class person has their price. But he'd misjudged his target completely. Now, here's a life lesson worth its weight in gold. Integrity isn't something you switch on when it's convenient. It's a muscle built through daily choices. Elena could have taken that money. God knows she needed it for her mother's medical treatments. But she remembered her father's words from childhood. Poverty is temporary, but dishonor is permanent. She looked the investigator dead in the eye and said, "I cleaned floors. I don't sell secrets." What happened next was straight out of a spy novel. The investigator left, but Alina noticed he'd accidentally dropped his business card. She also noticed Mr. Croft, the security director, watching the entire exchange with a little too much interest. The plot was thickening, and Alina realized she was no longer just a bystander in this human drama. She'd become an active player whether she liked it or not. That evening, as she was leaving, Mr. Harrington did something extraordinary. He met her at the staff entrance and pressed a sealed envelope into her hand. "For your mother's treatments," he murmured, then walked away. Inside was $10,000 in cash, exactly double what the investigator had offered. The message was clear. He knew about the attempted bribery, and he knew she'd remained loyal. But this generous act, while solving one problem, was about to create an even bigger one, because Mr. Croft had installed hidden cameras at all the exits. And he'd just captured what looked like his boss handing an envelope to a domestic worker. In his suspicious mind, this wasn't kindness, it was payment for services rendered. The security director now had the evidence he needed to destroy them both, and he was preparing to take it straight to the board of directors. Mr. Croft moved with the cold efficiency of a man who'd been waiting for his moment. He scheduled an emergency meeting with the board's ethics committee, armed with his smoking gun, the video of the envelope exchange. He'd convinced himself. He was about to uncover some massive conspiracy, never imagining he was actually threatening to expose a simple act of human kindness. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reveal everyone's true colors. The morning of the meeting, Alina arrived to find Mr. Harrington waiting for her, his face etched with a tension she'd never seen before. "They know about the money," he said quietly. "They think you're blackmailing me." The irony was almost painful. The one truly selfless act he'd done in years was about to be twisted into something sordid. This real-life drama was proving that no good deed goes unpunished. Now, here's where Elena's inspirational character truly shone. Instead of panicking or defending herself, she simply nodded and said, "Then we'll tell them the truth." Mr. Harrington looked startled. "The whole truth?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "About the drawings? About everything?" For the first time, the billionaire was vulnerable, not behind a locked door, but standing right in front of her. His empire trembling on the edge of a domestic worker's honesty. What happened in that boardroom would become legend in corporate circles. When the ethics committee demanded an explanation, Alina spoke before Mr. Harrington could. She described finding the misaligned lock, yes, but then she did something extraordinary. She described the children's drawings in vivid detail. The purple dinosaur, the stick figure family, the sun with a smiling face. "I didn't see a billionaire in that room," she told the stunned executives. "I saw a father who misses his children." The room fell so silent you could hear the expensive watches ticking. Mr. Croft's triumphant expression crumbled as he realized his scandal was actually a profoundly who the chairman's question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. All eyes turned to Mr. Harrington, whose carefully constructed composure finally shattered. "Because I'm not worthy," he whispered, his voice cracking with a pain that clearly ran deeper than anyone had imagined. The true story behind the children's drawings was far more tragic than simple corporate drama. It was a tale of addiction, recovery, and self-imposed exile to protect the very people he loved most. 7 years earlier, at the height of his success, Harrington had been battling a secret pill addiction that nearly destroyed everything. During a business trip, he'd caused a minor accident while impaired. No one was hurt, but the wake-up call was brutal. He'd checked into rehab and made the most difficult decision of his life: to stay away from his children until he was certain he could be the father they deserved. The drawings were their early childhood artwork, sent by his ex-wife, as a reminder of what he was fighting for. Now, here's where this emotional story delivers a powerful life lesson. Alina, who'd been silently observing, stepped forward and addressed the room. "A man who fights his demons to protect his children isn't weak," she said with quiet authority. "He's courageous, and a company that punishes that courage doesn't deserve his leadership." In that moment, the domestic worker became the moral compass of the entire corporation. What happened next was nothing short of miraculous. The board members, many of them parents themselves, began to see Harrington not as a liability, but as a human being. The conversation shifted from damage control to genuine support. They voted unanimously not only to keep him as CEO, but to establish a company-wide wellness program, naming it after Harrington's children. Sometimes, our greatest weaknesses become our most powerful strengths when we have the courage to be vulnerable. But as Harrington looked at Elena, with gratitude shining in his eyes, he realized something profound: the real inheritance he needed to protect wasn't his billions or his company, it was the wisdom this immigrant woman had shown him about what truly matters in life. And he was about to make a decision that would honor that wisdom in the most unexpected way. A decision that would complete this remarkable circle of storytelling and redemption. Man drama about grief and redemption. But just when it seemed the truth had saved them, the committee chairman asked the question that would change everything. "Mr. Harrington, if this is about missing your children, why haven't you seen them in 7 years?" In the weeks that followed, a remarkable transformation swept through both the company and the Harrington mansion. Mr. Harrington began the delicate process of reconciliation with his children, starting with carefully supervised visits and therapy sessions. The board, having witnessed raw humanity in their boardroom, implemented policies that valued employee well-being over pure profit. But the most profound change was one few people saw coming, a change that would cement this inspirational tale in corporate history. One crisp autumn morning, Harrington called Alina into his now unlocked study. The children's drawings still adorned the walls, but now they were properly framed alongside recent photos of his growing relationship with his kids. "Alina," he began, his voice filled with newfound warmth. "You've taught me more about integrity and courage than any business deal ever could. I want to honor that." He then made an offer that left her speechless: a full scholarship for her son to any university he chose, and a position for her on the company's new ethics committee. Now, here's the beautiful twist in this real life drama. Elena accepted the scholarship with tearful gratitude, but she declined the committee position with gentle firmness. "My place isn't in your boardroom, Mr. Harrington," she explained. "My wisdom comes from cleaning floors and observing life, not from reading reports." Instead, she proposed something far more powerful: monthly conversations where she'd share her observations about the company's impact on ordinary people, keeping him grounded in reality. This brings us to perhaps the most important life lesson of all. True success isn't about climbing ladders, but about finding where you can make the most meaningful impact. Elena continued her work as a domestic worker, but now with the quiet knowledge that she was helping steer a billion-dollar corporation toward greater humanity. Her immigrant stories and working-class perspective became the moral compass for business decisions affecting thousands of lives. The story doesn't end there. Of course, Mr. Harrington's company became known for its revolutionary human-first policies, attracting top talent and unprecedented loyalty. Elena's son is now studying ethics at an Ivy League university, his future transformed by his mother's courage. And Mr. Croft, he found himself so moved by the events he witnessed that he left corporate security to become a counselor for people struggling with addiction, proof that redemption touches everyone in its path. But perhaps the most beautiful part of this entire human drama is what happens every Tuesday afternoon at 3 p.m. when Elena brings tea to Harrington's study and they simply talk, not as billionaire and domestic worker, but as two human beings who helped each other remember what truly matters in this complicated, wonderful journey we call life.
So what happens when the masks come off and we're left with just our raw, human selves? This story isn't really about a billionaire or his maid. It's about the parts of ourselves we hide from the world and the unexpected people who help us find our way back to authenticity. The real treasure Elena discovered wasn't in that locked room. It was an understanding that no amount of wealth can shield us from our fundamental need for connection and redemption. And the greatest gift Mr. Harrington received wasn't protection from scandal, but the courage to finally face the man he'd been running from his entire life. Now I want you to think about your own life. Who are the invisible people in your world whose wisdom you might be overlooking? What truths are you hiding behind your own carefully constructed walls? And what might become possible if you had the courage to let someone see the real you, not the polished version, but the beautifully imperfect human being underneath? If this story resonated with you, we've created a practical guide, the keyhole principle, seeing the hidden wisdom in everyday life. The link is waiting for you in the first pinned comment. We'd love to hear from you. When was the last time you felt truly seen by someone? Have you ever discovered something that changed how you saw a person in power? Who in your life sees the real you behind the facade? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If these stories of courage and connection matter to you, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Share this with someone who needs reminding that their quiet strength matters. Because sometimes the most extraordinary transformations begin with something as simple as looking through the right keyhole.